The tax-free savings account. It's every Canadian investor's best friend, allowing you to shelter all of your capital gains, dividends, and interest from taxation. It can go a long way in minimizing your tax bill and maximizing your total returns. The TFSA's tax-reducing power is arguably even greater than that of the vehicle that most Canadians have traditionally relied on to fund their retirements, the Registered Retirement Savings Plan. RRSPs give you a tax break when you contribute and allow you to compound your investments tax-free for a certain number of years. However, you have to withdraw your money no later than age 71, and if you have a high tax rate in retirement, you will ultimately pay pretty high taxes on RRSP withdrawals. That's not the case with the TFSA, which doesn't give you the tax break on contribution, but allows you to compound and withdraw your investments tax-free. Having said that, there is a major misconception that people labor under when it comes to the tax-free savings account. That is the idea that once money is in a TFSA and invested, it can never be taxed ever. This isn't the case. Foreign dividend stocks have dividend withholding taxes applied to them all the time when Canadians hold them in TFSAs. And furthermore, there are three specific situations in which you would find the Canada Revenue Agency coming after you for taxes, even if you held investments in a TFSA. I'm going to explore each of those three scenarios one by one in a moment, but first I need to go into the history of how and why TFSAs were created. To understand how and why TFSAs can be taxed, we first need to know how and why TFSAs were invented in the first place. The TFSA was introduced in 2009 near the tail end of the Great Financial Crisis. In 2008, many U.S. banks suffered extreme losses, resulting in their share prices crashing, and ultimately in a contagion effect that spread to other sectors of the economy, resulting in countless people being laid off. Trust in the financial system was low. Many of the nation's biggest financial institutions, such as Bank of America and the insurer AIG, would have gone out of business if they hadn't received enormous government bailouts, AIG in particular receiving $182 billion worth. And politicians, of course, wanted to encourage Americans to invest in the U.S. economy, so they introduced the Roth IRA, which allowed investments to be held and withdrawn tax-free. The TFSA was introduced around the same time, probably as a response to the U.S.'s Roth IRA. While Canada didn't suffer quite the same amount of damage in the financial crisis that the US did, the Canadian market certainly did take a hit, and the TFSA was introduced basically to encourage people to invest long-term in our country's assets. You can find one clue as to why the CRA sometimes taxes people's TFSAs in the very name, tax-free savings account. Now, the word savings encompasses long-term investments, but if you're talking about things like day trading or options trading, that's more typically considered a kind of business activity and is not in keeping with the spirit in which the TFSA was created. Now, having gotten that 1-minute history lesson out of the way, it's time to explore the three scenarios in which your TFSA could be taxed by the Canada Revenue Agency. The first is where you overcontribute. If you contribute more money than you're allowed to your TFSA, you will be assessed a 1% tax on the amounts in excess of your contribution limit. Unfortunately, over-contributing to a TFSA is an easy trap to fall into because there's a lot of misinformation on how much you're actually able to contribute. It's often reported on Canadian personal finance blogs that Canadians can contribute up to $95,000 to the TFSA. That's true if you were 18 years of age or older in 2009. However, if you were younger than 18 that year, then your contribution limit will depend on how many annual contributions have accumulated since you turned 18. If you turned 18 this year in 2024, then you actually only have $7,000 worth of contribution room. If you go trying to contribute $95,000 in this scenario, you'll have to pay that 1% monthly tax on the overwhelming majority of the money you contributed. The second scenario is one that most Canadians won't find themselves in, but that entrepreneurs could potentially find themselves in. That is contributing shares in a business you run yourself to a TFSA. If you do this, you're considered trying to run a business within your TFSA, and the assets that you've put in your TFSA will be taxed accordingly. The third scenario in which your TFSA can become taxable is if you day trade in it and realize substantial profits. Every now and then, Canadians will realize enormous day trading profits in their TFSAs, only to find that the Canada Revenue Agency comes knocking later. It's not that realizing huge returns in your TFSA is against the rules or anything, but rather how those returns are earned. If you don't work full-time and the CRA can find out through an audit that you are day trading full-time in your TFSA, they'll classify that as a business, as your employment, and tax you accordingly. The taxes you pay in this scenario are all the more punishing than the other two, because here you don't even get to claim the dividend tax credit and the capital gains inclusion rate. You literally have to pay full business income taxes on that income that you earned in your TFSA, and of course all of the account's benefits are completely negated if the CRA finds you day trading in your TFSA. This is no idle threat. Just pull up Google News any day of the week and look up TFSA day trader tax, and you'll find plenty of stories of real Canadians who ended up getting taxed in their TFSAs after realizing outsized day trading profits. For example, I have one story here from the Toronto Star. Says, day trader ordered to pay taxes on TFSA investments after holdings grow to more than $600,000. The subheadline reads, Judge rules investment advisor Fareed Ahmed was running a business day trading, so must pay taxes on profits even though investments were inside tax shelter. These kinds of things are happening all the time. Realizing large day trading profits in your TFSA can get you taxed. And other factors such as being a financial advisor, an accountant, having special software, or using special research services can corroborate the CRA's claim that you are in fact running a trading business and increase the likelihood of you ultimately having to pay out even after you challenge it in court. So how do you avoid getting taxed within your TFSA? Well, the first two scenarios I reviewed are pretty easy to avoid. To avoid over-contribution taxes, don't contribute more than you're allowed to, and go to the CRA website, log into My Account to see how much you're allowed to contribute. They generally track this stuff from your financial institution. To avoid paying business taxes on business assets you've wrongly put into the TFSA, that's actually pretty simple. Just don't try to put shares of your own personal business into the account. If you have a way of securitizing your business and putting shares in there somehow, just don't do it and you won't pay those taxes. And as for day trading, well, I would say just don't day trade in the first place. Academic studies overwhelmingly show that 99% of people who attempt day trading fail to make any profits at it. And this is in a world where low-cost, broad market index funds have consistently delivered positive returns, depending on which fund you're talking about, up to 10% per year. 99% of day traders don't profit. That's not underperformance, that's losing money. So if you're a Canadian investor considering day trading, you need to consider that, one, you'll probably lose money day trading. Two, if you actually are one of the 1% who can day trade successfully, if you realize excessively high profits at it, the CRA can find out about it and then come after you for taxes. So don't day trade in your TFSA or any other account. You can thank me later. As you can see, there are many ways in which you can get taxed inside of a TFSA, but avoiding them is largely a matter of common sense. If you don't contribute more than your limit, don't try to put shares in your business into a TFSA, and don't try to be the world's greatest day trader, then you're probably not getting taxed in your TFSA. Ultimately, as long as you play by the rules, your account is probably safe. But if you ever felt like making YOLO option trades or day trading in your TFSA, watch out. The potential taxes that can be owed in these kind of situations can go well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's it for me today. Bye.